So what you need to know about Greece for this, I will also put up some um, like supplemental notes, like paper notes on here so that you can refer to the notes that go along with this right here. I just, with grading going on, I guess I just didn't have time. So I'll definitely do that for you. I'll put that out there today. It'll be for tomorrow, tomorrow's module. And it's just, you know, paper notes to look at. So when we talk about ancient Greece, we're talking about the physical geography of Greece. The Aegean Basin shaped the economic, social, and political development of Greek civilization. So its location next to the Aegean Sea was very important to the economic, social, and political development of the Greeks, especially when you think about Athens. They had to, you know, they had little farmable land, so they had to take to the seas for economic reasons, trade, and to bring in food for the people that lived there. The expansion of Greek civilization through trade and colonization led to the spread of Hellenic culture. So because they would trade with people along the Aegean Sea and Mediterranean Sea, it helped spread Hellenic culture or Greek culture. Hellenic just means Greek-like culture. Here you see a map, which you will have to know on the quiz, is the location of Sparta. If you look at the Peloponnesus, it almost looks like a hand or a claw out there, and you see Sparta is located in there. It's not on, and one thing about Sparta, it's not really close to the seas. It's sort of landlocked. It's not, you know, these guys weren't sailors. Remember, they're known best for their military. Then you have the Aegean Sea. You will need to know the location of the Aegean Sea. You have Athens. If you look right underneath Thebes, you find Athens. You do need to know the location of Athens, and you know, it's really close to the Aegean Sea. All these islands right here, you know, Athens would trade and move along these islands to find, you know, at least some type of trade route. And, you know, the lack of arable or farmable land led them to trade with people over here in Asia Minor and up to the north up in this way. You do need to know the location of Troy, which is up here in Asia Minor up to the, I guess what you would consider the northeast of Athens. So you do need to know the location of Troy. So you need to know those four: Sparta, Athens, and Troy, and the Aegean Sea for the quiz. All right, so agriculture, the economic and social development, you had very little farmable land due to the mountainous regions, especially like of Athens. So, you know, they had to take to trade to find food, commerce, and the spread of Hellenic culture or Greek culture. One important question on the quiz that always throws kids off is the shift from a trade economy or a barter economy where you trade two items, like you would trade a cow for two chickens and vice versa, as opposed to a money economy. So the Greeks went to what we call a money economy. They used coins. Coins represented, you know, a means of currency or trade. So we know what coins are. We use coins. If you want to buy something, you don't take a chicken to the store and, you know, say, here's a chicken, I want, you know, a Coca-Cola or whatever you're trying to get. You just take money, coins, and in our case, paper. They didn't have paper back then, but they did use coins. Okay, that's an important question that'll definitely be on the quiz. Political development, mountainous terrain helped and hindered the development of city-states. So because there were mountains, there was no Greek unity, okay? The Greeks were not unified. They were all separated into city-states. That's why when we talk about the Peloponnesian War, it was Greeks fighting Greeks. Athens and Sparta, they all believed in the same gods. They all spoke the same language, but they didn't get along with each other because of city-states, the development of city-states. Greek cities were designed to promote civic and commercial life, meaning, you know, you participated in government. That was your civic duty. And, you know, you wanted to be a part of your community. You know, Spartans were very proud to be Spartans. It's like your favorite football team. If you got a favorite football team or baseball team, if your team is the Cowboys, you stick by them. My team is really bad. It's the Detroit Lions, so they're really bad, but I stick with them. You know, you're very loyal to your city-state. You don't like want to be part of Sparta because you're from Athens. You don't want to be part of Athens or Thebes because you are a Spartan. Colonization was related to overpopulation and the search of arable land. So many of the city-states were overpopulated, and they often would look for arable or farmable land and set up colonies in other places. In fact, that's what really kind of led to the Persian Wars. All right, so one thing you have to know about the Greeks and Greek mythology. Greek mythology was based on a polytheistic religion that was integral to the culture, politics, and art in ancient Greece. Many Western civilization symbols, metaphors, and words, idealized images come from ancient Greek mythology. Greek mythology is based on a polytheistic religion, and it explains natural phenomenon, human qualities, and life events. Okay. What they wanted to do was explain things. Remember in the notes, I don't know if you remember the notes, but we talked about how a lot of times they wouldn't bury people who were struck by lightning because they felt like Zeus was mad at that person. So they didn't want to bury them because they didn't want Zeus to be mad at them. So you look at these, and when you think about the gods and goddesses, they all sort of explain something. You know, each one has a purpose. For example, Apollo was the god of light, and he brought the sun up each day. Okay, so if you think about Zeus was the main god. He, was the god of thunder and lightning and things of that nature. So the ones you have to know: Zeus, Hera, Apollo, Artemis, Athena, and Aphrodite. Symbols and images in Western literature and architecture. Even today, we use a lot of these sort of images. If you think about even movies and things like that, like Percy Jackson and, Clash of the Titans, you see a lot of the Greek sort of mythology in those sort of videos or movies. So real quickly, who was the chief god?
Zeus.
Zeus is the chief god, the god of thunder and lightning. And his wife would be whom?
Athena.
Athena is actually his daughter.
Oh. Hera.
Hera. And Hera was a jealous wife. Zeus wasn't very faithful, and Hera was very jealous and wasn't real fond of, Zeus running around looking for other women. Remember that Hercules was born to a human, not a goddess, that is. And, Hera wasn't a big fan of him either. Who is the god of light that brings the sun up in his chariot each morning?
Apollo.
Apollo. This is always a tough one. The goddess of chastity.
Artemis.
Artemis is the goddess of chastity. Goddess of love and beauty.
Athena.
Nope. Remember, all right, this is the best way to remember Athena. Athens is named after Athena. So Athena is the goddess of what?
Wisdom.
Wisdom. Athens bunch of smart people. We're going to talk about all the philosophers next week and all of those people. Socrates, Plato, Hippocrates, Aristotle, all of those smart people. So whenever I think about that, Athens named itself after the goddess of wisdom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the goddess of love and beauty is going to be whom?
Aphrodite.
Aphrodite. Okay, Aphrodite. All right, and this chart is good at showing you polytheistic religion. Myths gave the Greeks explanations to things they couldn't answer, nature, things like that. And the important gods and goddesses you see on the left, Zeus, Hera, Apollo, Artemis, Athena, and Aphrodite. They're the only ones that you need to know. Greek mythology still continues to influence the Western world in literature, art, architecture, and politics, even to this day. All right, the Greek polis. The polis is another word for city-state. All right, the word polis means city-state. Classical Athens developed the most democratic system of government the world has ever seen. It became the foundation for modern democracies. You know, there's a lot of election talk. Everybody's pretty aware of who's running for president. One of the things that always gets me is people constantly call the United States a democracy. It's not a democracy like the Greeks had. The Greeks had what we call a direct democracy where everyone participated and voted. Even if you think about the United States, every citizen does not get to vote. People with, felonies and things like that, they lose their right to vote. And in a lot of cases, people are just indifferent. In Athens, people were expected to participate in decision making. Okay, they were expected to go out and vote. That was your duty as a citizen. We are what you consider more of a republic, and we'll talk about a republic when we get to Rome, but just know that Athens is direct democracy, the most democratic government the world had ever seen to this time. Now, when you look at Sparta, Sparta had an oligarchy in which, you had few powerful people ran the government, okay? Citizens, free adult males, had political rights and responsibilities of civic participation, so they were expected to participate in the government. The people who had no rights were women and foreigners, okay? So people from outside of each city-state, especially Athens, had no say-so in political rights. Slavery existed in Greece. Usually in Athens, it was more of what you call slavery for debt. So if you owed a person money, you might have to sell yourself into slavery if you couldn't pay it back for 3 or so years. Now, Sparta, the slaves or the helots were mostly people who were conquered on the battlefield. And, the Spartans were very mean to the helots and that sort of thing. But slaves had no political rights. All right, this is an important one that you'll find on the quiz that kind of throws people off. But I always think about the sort of an acronym MADEN. So the stages and evolution of the Athenian government. You start with a monarchy or a king. They didn't like that, so they went to aristocracy where wealthy landowners were in charge. They didn't like that. So tyrants would take over, like Solon and Draco. They would take over and often, sometimes they were loved, sometimes they weren't, but they would take over by force. Draco was best known for harsh, very, harsh law code in which, it was said to have been written in blood. Where Solon, people actually liked him. He ended slavery for debt, things like that. Under Solon, it became more of a democratic sort of place. And this is where it shifted to democracy. So it went from monarchy to aristocracy to tyranny and then to democracy. And it tells you at the bottom, direct democracy. Athens had a direct democracy. Every citizen was, could participate and was expected to participate in government. Public debate is what you see. You've heard Trump and Biden are going to debate. All right. So what is public debate? You get out there and you argue for or against something, and then someone's going to argue the other side of it. And then people will decide from there how they're going to go with it. So public debate, the art of public speaking, was very important in Athens. Duties of the citizen, you were expected to vote, you were expected to participate in government. The things you got to know about Sparta, real simple: ruled by a small group or an oligarchy. They had a rigid social structure, a militaristic and aggressive society. Remember the videos, if you go back and watch the videos of the little kid who has to go and take his beat down and then he goes into the Spartan military. That's always fascinating to me. So, because I got a little 7-year-old right now. He's a little spindly old fella. He probably wouldn't have made it through. Well, I don't know. He was kind of a big baby, so he might have made it. But he's really scrawny right now. I don't see how he could in any way go through the Spartan training where they teach you how to be a soldier. All right, and so there you see it again. This is a good graphic organizer where it tells you the general characteristics. Free adult males were allowed to be citizens. Citizens enjoyed political rights, but had a responsibility to participate in the government. Women and foreigners had no political rights. Slaves had no political rights. Athens, it tells you right there, monarchy to aristocracy, tyranny to democracy. So those are the 4 types of government. It's got Draco and Solon on there, 2 tyrants. Athens is the birthplace of democracy. Sparta, oligarchy, ruled by a small group, rigid social structure, very aggressive society based upon militaristic principles. Their economy was agricultural based. All right, and this is a little Venn diagram here. So basically what we would do is put the words at the bottom into that, but we're not going to do that just because, well, I mean, we can go through it real quickly. Oligarchy would be which one, Sparta or Athens?
Athens.
No, remember
Sparta.
Athens is a democracy.
Oh, it'd be Sparta then.
That's going to be Sparta. Draco and Solon, where were they located at? They were tyrants. So that's going to be what?
Would that be Sparta as well?
No.
That'd be Athens.
Athens went from monarchy to aristocracy, then to tyranny. So it's going to be Athens. Who had a direct democracy?
Direct democracy. You just said something about that. That'd be because you said that Athens went from democracy to the other one and then tyranny. So it'd have to be Sparta.
No, because they are. Now remember, Sparta is only an oligarchy. Athens has those 4 types. So it's going to be Athens. Athens is direct democracy.
Oh, right.
All right. Now, this is the part where it gets tricky. Athens, Sparta, or both. Greek mythology.
Both.
Both, all right? They both believed in the same gods and goddesses. Believed in the beauty of the mind, the body, and the soul. Smart people.
Athens.
Athens. Which one was militaristic?
Sparta.
Sparta. Which one valued education?
Athens.
That's right, Athens. They're the smart people. Athena is their patron goddess. Babies deemed unfit to live were left to die at birth. Who did that?
Sparta.
Sparta. And Greek language, which one?
Both.
It's going to be both. Exactly. Good. And then women had more freedom in this city-state.
They would have Athens.
Actually, it's Sparta.
Sparta.
Athens, women didn't really have a lot of say-so. Remember, in Sparta, women were tough. They were often, in great shape, athletic, and they actually had a little bit more freedom as, the men were gone constantly fighting in wars, so they actually did have a little bit more freedom than the women would have in Athens. All right, so here's the last part for the quiz. Persian Wars united Athens and Sparta. That's really what you need to know against the Persian empires. Remember, the Athenian victories over the Persians at Marathon and Salamis left the Greeks in control of the Aegean. So whenever I think about Marathon, I think about Phidippides running 26.2 miles to yell victory and tell the Athenians that they had beat the Persians at Marathon. Then he immediately croaked out and died. The Battle of Salamis was a very great, sea battle. Themistocles led Athens and tricked the Persians into fighting them in the narrow Salamis Strait, in which he sunk all their ships. Athens preserved its independence after the war and continued innovations, and it led to the golden age of Athens. So the Persian War was actually pretty good for Athens. Peloponnesian War was Athens versus Sparta. Athens formed the Delian League, and Sparta formed the Peloponnesian League. And at the end of this war, Sparta actually won the war with the help of the Persians, of all things, but it resulted in the slowing of cultural advance and the weakening of power. So whenever you look at this on the quiz, remember, Sparta and Athens together on the same team is going to be the Persian Wars. Okay, they're fighting against the Persians. And then Sparta fighting Athens is going to be your Peloponnesian War. Okay, so when you see that on there, it's going to be questions that say, which war was this? You need to be able to differentiate between the two. Who fought who in each war? All right, so which happened first, the Persian Wars or the Peloponnesian Wars?
Peloponnesian Wars.
Well, remember, the Persian Wars came first because they were actually buddies and if you look, I'm gonna go back, all right? Look up at the top here, and this is always sort of confusing, sorry. So Persian Wars occurred between 499 and 449 BC. All right, now remember, BC counts down.
It does.
Okay, so the Persian Wars are going to occur before 431 and 404, where it counts down, okay, to the very first, AD year. So it's actually the Persian Wars. All right. Which of these wars united the Greeks?
United the Greeks. So that would be the Peloponnesians Wars.
Nope. Remember, the Greeks fought against each other in the Peloponnesian War. So it's going to be the Persian Wars. They were fighting against the Persians, a common enemy. So try to, when you think about that, when I think about the Persian Wars, I always remember it's tough because Sparta and Athens they're not really the best of friends, but they do help each other in this case. Which of these wars were Greeks fighting Greeks?
Peloponnesians.
All right, Peloponnesians, Sparta and the Peloponnesian League against Athens and the Delian League. All right, last thing is the golden age of Pericles. Pericles extended democracy, and he rebuilt Athens after its destruction in the Persian Wars. I don't think I'm going to have this on here on the quiz, but it's important to know the Parthenon is an example of this reconstruction. So the question on the quiz, I'll just be honest with you, it's just going to say, Greece's golden age was under the leadership of